Just waiting for it to start recording. Okay, here we go. So today I want to go over a little bit about what you guys have done. So if you guys have your models up to show, that way we can kind of discuss them, maybe see if you're running into issues or something we can do to improve. So is everyone ready to show something? Does everyone have something to show?
No, not really.
No? Okay. Matthew or Noah? Forgot to save it. Okay. Noah? You there? I was seeing if you had anything to show. What was your progress so far? Okay, well, can you show us some of what you've got? You can hit the present now and share your screen. That way we can see what you've worked on. Okay, got it. Okay. All right, well, that's fine. We'll go over some more basics for animation. So today we'll cover some lighting, we'll cover a little bit of modeling, and we'll cover doing some actual camera animation also. So let me go ahead and share my screen and kind of show you what I've started blocking out. So we will share the Blender screen. And as you can see here, I've got the road. I've got kind of the fence. As you can see, I'm kind of blocking out a little bit of the St. Ambrose complex. So you have the church and the school here. And then we have a light here. And this, what you see here in this background is called an HDRI. I know it looks like a picture. That's technically what it is, but what it does is it contains light data. So it emits light from the brightest part of the image, and everything else emits less light. So as you can see, this is our sun. This is what's going to emit the most light. And we're going to go over how to do that also. So let's go ahead and start with the lighting. So there's lots of different types of lights. And let me get to that tab first so we can kind of get familiar with it. And then, we'll just turn everything off. Turn off all power here. And we will hide the sunlight. And as you can see, the only thing that is visible are the lights that we have emitting from our vehicles. So when we're talking about lighting, there's lots of different types of light. So you have things like point lights, which has a small radius of light to emit from. Now, obviously, you can make this bigger, smaller, however you want in here. And we can adjust things like the power, the specular, and how big this light is. We can adjust the power, so the wattage, how much light does it emit. So you can see and hear how it's only emitting a small area. Then we have, well, we'll skip the sun for now. We'll go into that in a minute. We have like an area light. These are what I use quite a bit of in my production. And it's kind of the same thing. But what this does is it tends to give you softer edges. And you can see how it affects the reflectivity a little bit also. And then you have, and also area lights and point lights tend to emit an even amount of light. So when we use something, say like a spotlight, let me bring it over here and increase the wattage. And you see how you have a sharp edge, but not only that, because it's from a cone shape, when I tilt it up, now I've got that fall off. You guys feel free to chime in at any time. And see, now you've got that defined shape, similar to what you would have on, say, a vehicle. So if I'm doing a vehicle, usually I'll put spotlights on the front of it. And this has a few more parameters, like the angle. I can adjust it wide, more narrow. I can adjust the size, the overall size. I can adjust, let me see what's that. And then you can customize the distance. So where does it stop? As you can see. And then on top of that, we also have sunlight, which lights up everything. So when I lift it up, and also the direction, as you can see where this line points is the direction that it is emitting from. So if we move this, you see how the shadows are affected? And that affects everything. And then we have what's called, let me delete all of these extra lights that we don't need. We have what's called image-based lighting. That's from the HDRI that I told you about. That's the picture. So when we're using a picture, what that does is that encompasses the entire area. So what we do is we'll select an input for our texture coordinate, and we can go over these at a later time. It's not important at this moment. And then our mapping. Now this is important. So this allows us to change the position and the rotation and the scale of our image. We have to pick an environmental texture. So this is the image this is gonna have everything that we need in it. And then we'll pick the image, and then we'll plug that in to the background. As you can see, there's no strength. But once I brighten it up, now I've lit up the entire scene from an image. And the thing is, you can take an HDR image from anything. You can take the pictures from an iPhone, from a regular camera, the Android phone. You have lots of options to be able to capture high definition resolution imagery. So if you come over here to cycles, and now you can see how that light is affecting. So all these shadows are not emitting from any light in the scene. These are emitting shadows from the sunlight located in the image. So if I rotate this image, let's say 75 degrees, now you can see that the shadow changes now. Or we can say 90 degrees. And this is how we tend to create real world scenes. Or say if I want to put something into a real world scene, what I'll do is I'll capture that environment that it surrounds, and then I'll plug that into this, and then that'll allow me to blend this into a real picture. Because what I'm doing is I'm able to match the lighting from the real world into the actual 3D application that we're using. Now, any questions on lighting so far? Make sense so far? Any questions? Okay. So now let's talk about camera animation. So we've done some basic animation and rigging with the car. So you know, how to get the wheels to move and such. But now we need to have what if we want to follow this camera? How do we make this look like it's actually doing something? How do we create a scene? So we'll quickly, let me animate these vehicles. So we'll have this start here at frame 0. And I'll have it come this way. Oops, sorry. We'll sit here at 250. We'll have it come right here. So now that car's moving. And we'll have this car. Oops, sorry. We'll have this car start here. And let's say at 250, it'll be a little bit further along than this car. That way they're not pacing at the same speed. Kind of like how he's pulling away a little bit. And we'll do the same thing for the truck. Let's say at 250, he's here. Back at 0, the truck will be here. So now we've got some traffic. But now I don't have anything to give it any interest. So we're going to add some camera movement. So here I have my camera. And as you can see, I've got some traffic moving. So what I'll do is I will bring it back. So we'll start here. That way, you know that everything, our buildings are in view. And I'll key the location and the rotation, and you'll see that there's a lot that we can do with this. But first, you can see that there's nothing showing on the screen. My buildings have disappeared, and that's because of what is the clipping distance. We can adjust that by just adding a little value and a bigger one here also. Let's say 2000. And what that really is it's a way to just save memory. It's not really necessary. So what happens is if I bring this down, my render would stop right there where you see the black. So the further back I go, the more I'll see when I actually go to render out frames. We'll start here, and we will end here. Now what I want to do is, I'm going to bring this up, and I'm going to rotate this way, and up just a little bit. Well, you know what, I'll bring it down. We'll have it like a drone shot almost. That way we can see almost like we're taking off from the street. So now now of course everything's blurry. Let me turn that off. That's depth of field. So now as I come through, you'll see the cars coming into the camera, which is everything, which is what you see is highlighted in green. And you'll see kind of the church and the school come into view from behind. Everything here. And that's, the first, set scene animation. So what we can do is we can take this straight, we can pull it back. That way everything's in frame. And we can adjust everything to stay in camera. Bring this over. Now everything will be in the view. And that's camera animation. So now before when you saw the blurriness, so let's take another shot. Oh, I messed it up. That's all right, I'll fix it later. Take another camera. And what we'll do is we'll set it here in the middle of the street. And we'll bring it back just a little bit. Bring it up. And we're going to rotate this 90 degrees. 0, and 0. And we'll set this as the camera. And that way we can actually do a little bit of following action. So if we're here, say, well, let's go back to 0. Actually, and we'll turn this 180. We'll start from behind the vehicles. And it'll almost be as if we're a vehicle in a vehicle ourselves. So we'll lift this up. And we'll pull this over as if we're in a lane. We'll adjust the rotation, we'll adjust the location. We don't have to worry about the scale. That's irrelevant in a camera. And now what we're going to do is we're going to follow these vehicles and then we'll execute a pass. So say from here to 180. We're following the vehicle, just like we're in traffic. But now what I want to be is I want to be ahead. So I'm going to execute a pass, like so. We don't want to interfere, we don't want to hit this car. So we're always going to do our adjustments as we incrementally. So we'll bring it back, we'll bring it over just a little bit. And it's almost like a fast pass. Now, cars will tilt and turn. So we're going to turn it just a little bit. I'm going to tilt it just a little bit. And when we bring it over, we'll tilt it back, turn it over. And now, well, I need to fix that rotation. 0. Following along like a really fast turn. And sorry, this should be at 180, not 170. Needs to follow along like it's in traffic. And something to add a little more interest when it comes to camera animation, we can add depth of field. And what that allows us to do is focus on something in the front and blur everything else around it. So if we only want to focus on, say, the car in front of us, we'll say, we'll check, add depth of field. We'll cut our focal distance a little bit. Just our f-stop. We can always pick something we want to focus on. So we'll focus on this object. And you see how things start to blur around, allows us to focus on what's in front. And that's the basics of camera animation. Now there's a few other things we can also do. So we can create things like dollies and crane type rigs when we're doing camera animation. So, and I can show you that really quickly also. So let's say we have, and we do that with parenting. So we'll just come over here to the end where everything is stopped. We're on the subject frame 300. From here, we'll create an empty object. And what I'll do is I'll bring it over here and I'll just to have it here in place. Now I'll create another camera. What I'm going to do is I'm going to parent that to this empty object. So my object properties, I'm going to parent it. When it says empty, that's exactly where it's going to go. And now it's zeroed out right here. So I'll select that camera. I'm going to bring it back just a little bit. And I'm going to bring this empty object to the center of the car. I'm going to bring this object just back a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to now what's going to happen is review camera, set this as the active camera. Now what else the other thing we're going to do is we're going to parent this to the vehicle here. We'll bring this back to 0. We're going to bring it down just a little bit. We're going to pull this camera back. And now when we go to select empty, we're going to rotate this around. And you see now I'm following around the car. So empty up just a touch. That way we'll keep things in frame. And we can adjust that as we animate. Let's say if we're doing a scene where we're watching a car pass by. So we're here. Select our camera. Give it some depth of field. Up this up just a little bit. That way we can focus strictly on the car. So now, as we're following along, we'll take empty, key it, and you can rotate around the vehicle to my endpoint where I want to be. Here. And now we have a dolly animation. So we're following the vehicle, you see the truck pass by, and we're following along down the road. And what we can do is we can also add a little bit of elevation to it. And then what I'll do is, here at 0, I'll take the camera and I'll keyframe that. I'll come up to 250. And I'll bring this shot back just a little bit to add a little more motion and a little more interest. So now we're driving along, the truck passes, the camera's lifting, and that gives it just a little more uh, depth, a little more, balance in the shot. That way it's not so linear, and it keeps things moving. Okay, makes sense so far? Any questions? Okay, so now we'll go into some modeling, and we're going to learn a little bit about arrays really quickly. So let's hide. We'll hide this. So this is how we make our grids. We'll just hide everything here. We'll do this. We'll take a cube, or we'll take a sphere. That's fine. Doesn't matter what it is. Smooth shade it. Let me give it just a little bit of interest. That way you can kind of see everything that's being reflected around. And we're going to do what's called an array. Now this is how I build things like fences, or if I want to replicate like a massive amount of things, so like boxes, uh, leaves, all sorts of little things. So we'll add an array modifier. I see how I duplicated it once, but now I can do as many as I want. And with the relative offset, I can add space to it, and I can add angle, up or down in any direction. Now you can add mapping, clipping, nothing in here we really, really need. Uh, Zero that one out. And then we can see if we can add another array modifier. But this time, we'll duplicate it this way. And now you see we're getting multiple rows. Oops. There we go. So say if I'm creating a farm or a row of trees, this is how you do this. Let's take this back to 0. Check this out just a little bit. And we'll do the same thing with the offset. And now you have a large array. So I'll show you how this works with our fence. So let's delete this. Create a cube. We will scale it. What we'll do is we'll add an array. We're going to offset it a little bit, like so. That way it has some space. Next, we're going to add another cube. And we're going to make this one smaller. That way it kind of seats in, like so. And these are going to kind of be our pickets. Scale it on the Z. We'll bring it in. And now we're going to add another array modifier. And we'll space these out accordingly. You don't have to be exact. You just have to kind of get the general idea. And see, now we have the beginnings of a fence. We'll just add more down the line. And then from there, we'll create another cube. Bring it up. Tab, and select the face. So if we're going polygon mode, we'll select the polygon. And we will bring it all the way across. And that will be the base of our fence. We're going to come all the way down, but you get the general idea. We'll duplicate that. We'll bring it up. And now you have a fence in just a few minutes. It's that easy. Any questions so far? It should have been pretty easy to follow. Okay. All right. Well, I think I've covered a lot with that. So I think we're going to end it a little early here, but for next week, let's all try and have something to show. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be anything special. Just whatever it is you're practicing with or trying out, any kind of methods that you're working on, anything that you're trying that you get stuck on, let's all take a look and kind of see where your progress is at. Because we would like to create a small project out of everything that we're doing here, okay? Okay, everyone, I'm going to let you go. Hope you guys enjoy your day. I will post this later tonight, and we'll see you later. All right, bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day. Hey, Mr. Vogel. It looks